Ida Ehi, a spiritual, musical, struggling, and resilient journey. One of the most well-known vocalists in modern African gospel music is Ada Ehi. She has established a career spanning decades and international boundaries thanks to her strong vocals, expressive worship style, and audacious statements of faith. Beneath the achievements, accolades, and international acclaim, however, is a profoundly human tale characterized by early accountability, inner turmoil, spiritual struggles, public pressure, quiet disputes, and painful times that molded her personality and vocation. This is more than just a gospel singer's tale. It tells the tale of a lady who found her voice in the face of uncertainty, grew up quickly, and developed endurance early in life. In a society that frequently expects perfection from both spiritual leaders and artists, Ada Ehi's biography illustrates the difficulty of juggling faith, family, career, and public expectations. As Ada Ehi's life narrative comes to an end, what's left is more than simply a picture of a well-known gospel singer. It's a picture of a lady who has persevered through hardships by using her religion as her compass. Her path serves as a reminder that beyond the glittering lights of ministry and music is a very human tale, characterized by selflessness, tenacity, miscommunication, and persistent faith. Ada Ehi's life serves as evidence that strength is developed during difficult times and that purpose is frequently forged in suffering. Ada's journey was never easy or certain from the beginning. She experienced silence before acclaim and rejection before acknowledgement, much like many others who are asked to stand in public places. There were times when uncertainty threatened to eclipse her calling, when possibilities appeared far away, and when her voice went unnoticed. Even yet, she persevered, choosing faith over fear and duty over consolation. Her humility was influenced by these early challenges, and her achievement was rooted in something much more profound than celebrity. The burden of expectations increased along with her platform. Invisible pressure, the need to be flawless, unwavering, and unendingly strong, often accompanies success in gospel service. Ada Ehi confronted this fact head-on. She carried not only her own aspirations, but also the hopes of others who admired her with each new song, public appearance, and accomplishment. Although it was rarely discussed in public, this pressure formed a part of her silent struggle and served as a reminder that vulnerability is frequently exacerbated by visibility. Her story also included passages about controversies. Ada found herself navigating storms of public scrutiny, whether due to miscommunications, criticism, or divergent views over the direction of her music and ministry. Her fortitude and character were put to the test in these situations. She responded with grace instead of resentment. She plunged more deeply into her purpose instead of withdrawing in silence. Her handling of controversy demonstrated a maturity defined by conviction rather than adulation. In its own subtle and agonizing ways, tragedy also made an appearance in her life. No amount of public accomplishment could make up for the emotional, spiritual, or personal scars left by loss. She was confronted with questions, anguish, and the frailty of human existence when these moments deprived her of titles and distinction. However, Ada's faith remained strong, despite her grief. Rather, it changed. Her lyrics conveyed real-life experiences, her worship became a haven for herself as well as for others, and her music started to reflect a deeper honesty. The strength of Ada Ehi's path lies not in the lack of adversity, but rather in her perseverance in overcoming it. She is a symbol of a strength that bravely endures suffering rather than denying it. Anyone who has ever been misinterpreted, ignored, or burdened by expectations can relate to her experience. It serves as a reminder that adversity does not negate purpose. Rather, it frequently clarifies it. Ada Ehi is now recognized not only as an artist, but also as a representation of tenacity. Her example inspires us to persevere through difficult times, stay loyal when the answers are uncertain, and keep going even when the price seems high. She shows us that while calling does not absolve us from suffering, it does give it purpose. We are encouraged to look behind the stage and into the heart of a woman who consistently chooses faith on a daily basis as readers, listeners, and witnesses of her journey. Ada Ehi's legacy is not just in her songs, but also in the courage she exemplifies. It lies in her courage to stay true to herself in a world that frequently expects perfection, her willingness to evolve, and her reluctance to give up. Ultimately, her narrative is about perseverance rather than controversy or tragedy. It is the story of a woman who transformed suffering into praise and hardships into testimony. As her journey progresses, one thing is evident. Ada Ahi's life serves as a reminder that, despite adversity, faith, hope, and purpose continue to propel us ahead. Early life, developing responsibility. Ada Ahi was born Ada Ogochukwu Ahi. She subsequently went as Ada Ahi Moses in her professional life. She was exposed to responsibilities at a younger age than many of her contemporaries. Her early years in Nigeria were influenced not only by play and ambitions, but also by expectations, discipline, and the realities of a family overcoming obstacles in life. She was raised with a strong sense of responsibility. She was taught the importance of dedication and persistence even as a young child, qualities that would eventually define her career. Her early involvement with music was a natural way for her to convey her feelings and faith rather than a strategy for becoming famous. At first, singing was about comfort, connection, and meaning rather than stages and applause. Ada's musical foundation was greatly influenced by her exposure to church music, as is the case with many youngsters raised in religious households. Participating in the chorus taught her discipline, harmony, and teamwork. These early encounters subtly prepared her for an unimagined future. Discovering her voice in a world of competition. Ada had a difficult start to her official career as a professional musician. Even in the gospel genre, the Nigerian music industry is fiercely competitive. There are few opportunities, high demands, and tardy acknowledgement. The path was anything but easy for a young woman with a clear calling but few resources. She had one of her first successes as a backup vocalist for a well-known gospel performer. Despite its lack of glamour, this position turned become an important training ground. She learned professionalism, patience, and humility from it. She gained insight into the inner workings of the industry, including how songs were created, how performers dealt with pressure, and how faith had to endure even in the face of seemingly unattainable success. Ada had internal identity issues during this time. She struggled with the same issues as many up-and-coming artists. Was she good enough? Would anyone ever hear her voice? Did she really call, or was it a dream? These uncertainties took time to go away. Even when doors slowly opened, they silently followed her. Finding a balance between education and calling, Ada made the conscious choice to continue her education, in contrast to many artists who drop out of school early to pursue their artistic goals. Her route to earning a degree in chemical and polymer engineering required a great deal of dedication, self-control, and sacrifice. It was difficult to juggle the demands of school with a developing love of music. There were times when her willpower was shaken by fatigue. During certain seasons, she felt as like she was being tugged in two different directions. One was realistic and predictable, while the other was unclear but incredibly rewarding. This stage of her life highlights a quality of her personality that is sometimes disregarded: patience. Ada took her time. She realized that preparation was just as vital as opportunity, and that time was crucial. Her scholastic path also boosted her self-esteem outside of music, demonstrating that her identity extended beyond her skill. The rise taking center stage. An important turning point was Ada Ahi's move from supporting parts to the forefront. Listeners sensed a change as soon as she started releasing music under her own name. She spoke with conviction. Her lyrics had an intimate quality. She spoke with assurance and sincerity. Not just in Nigeria, but throughout Africa and beyond, songs that emphasized religion, thankfulness, triumph, and identity struck a chord with a broad audience. Her songs helped regular Christians deal with hope, worry, and uncertainty. Ada made her music approachable and relatable by choosing clarity and heart over complicated vocabulary. Expectations increased along with her popularity. Scrutiny followed visibility. Each release was examined. Every appearance was talked about. This attention presented both opportunity and pressure for a religiously grounded artist. Motherhood and marriage. A new chapter. Ada's private and public lives took on a new dimension after her marriage. As a gospel performer, her relationship attracted attention, admiration, and perhaps irrational expectations. Many saw her marriage as an example, failing to acknowledge that every marriage faces difficulties. Being a mother changed her much more. Making tough decisions was necessary to balance a hard music career with being a mother. Pregnancy, delivery, and child rearing have to be matched with touring schedules, studio time, and public appearances. There were challenges this season. Ada has discussed the psychological and physical costs of juggling ministry and family life both directly and indirectly. Her strength was put to the test by emotional vulnerability, lack of sleep, and the constant need to be present at home and on stage. However, becoming a mother also strengthened her faith. She gained a fresh perspective on sacrifice, love, and accountability as a result. These ideas started to show up more prominently in her music. Public pressure and quiet conflicts. The urge to seem perfect increased as Ada's influence increased. Gospel performers are frequently held to rigid standards that don't allow for humanity. Any apparent shift in expression, sound, or style can easily turn into a contentious issue. Ada was criticized for her artistic direction, wardrobe choices, and musical development. Some others wondered if some sounds were too modern for gospel music. Others closely examined her public persona, anticipating that she would conform to a specific ideal of what a religious artist ought to look like. Even if they weren't always loud, these complaints persisted. It took emotional fortitude to go through them. Ada had to learn when to keep her peace and when to listen. Every viewpoint had the capacity to have an impact on her mental state, even though not all of them merited a reaction. One of her hidden struggles, learning to distinguish between her calling and public approval, is highlighted during this time. Disagreements, misconceptions, not scandals. Ada Ehi has mostly avoided significant scandals in contrast to many famous people. She hasn't, however, been exempt from scandal in the form of miscommunications and public discussion. Collaborations, musical direction, and alleged changes in worship style were some of the topics of controversy. Her eagerness to experiment led to debates in some circles over the relative merits of tradition versus innovation in gospel music. Ada opted for a measured response instead of a defensive one. Rather than noise, she concentrated on intention. She has frequently responded to controversy by being silent, reflecting, and carrying on with her work, which has allowed her consistency to speak louder than justification. Her maturity was evident at these instances. Public declarations weren't necessary for every conflict. Growing sometimes meant having faith that the truth would eventually come to light. Tragedies and emotional distress. Ada's life has not been characterized by a public catastrophe, but she has endured emotional suffering that has profoundly influenced her. Her journey has included disappointment, loss, and unspoken pain. There were times when faith needed perseverance rather than joy, and prayers felt unanswered. Although these incidents hardly ever made the news, they had a significant impact on her songwriting. Quiet personal hardships frequently gave rise to songs about trust, waiting, and divine timing. Ada faced emotional burdens in private while continuing to serve in public, just like many other women in ministry. Few people openly discuss this emotional labor, smiling on stage while overcoming internal conflicts. Her tragedy, the burden of expectations, the fear of disappointing those who looked up to her, and the difficulty of maintaining spiritual stability in a fast-paced industry was real even though it wasn't always spectacular. Faith as the basis, not performance. Ada Ehi's view of faith as a foundation rather than a performance is one of the key characteristics of her path. Her music is meant to inspire rather than to impress. Authenticity has always been more important to her than perfection. She was able to endure criticism, weariness, and uncertainty thanks to this viewpoint without losing her sense of purpose. For her, faith turned from a source of stress to a haven. Her narrative serves as a reminder to listeners that belief is about maintaining faith in the absence of clarity rather than having all the answers. Legacy and persistent impact. Ada Ehi is revered in gospel music today because she persevered through adversity rather than because she avoided it. Beyond only music, her influence can be seen in testimonies, modest words of support, and the example of a woman who prioritized constancy over commotion. She embodies a generation of musicians who are reimagining gospel music without losing sight of its central theme. Her experience demonstrates that faith may change without becoming shallow and that progress does not necessitate compromise. Ada Ehi's life is still developing. Experience, introspection, and resiliency have shaped her story, which is still being written. Conclusion: a tale of grace and strength. Ada Ehi's life is an example of tenacity, faith, and inner fortitude. Her story illustrates the complexities of being human in the public eye, from early responsibility to public success, from personal problems to spiritual growth. She is neither overwhelmed by tragedy nor defined by controversy. Rather, she is based in belief, directed by purpose, and formed by endurance. Her narrative inspires others to welcome change, stay true to themselves, and have faith in their path, even if it takes time. Ada Ehi is evidence that long-lasting influence is created over time with faith, perseverance, and fortitude in a society that frequently glorifies quick achievement.